And
is specific enough that an employer that has a well-established HR department, that has policies and procedures already in place that may need a little refining, the guidelines and the implementation guide will serve as kind of a refresher to help those institute those small changes or those tweaks that are necessary. But also, it's specific enough that if a smaller employer, which the majority of employers in Kentucky are those smaller employers, if they do not have formal policies around drug and alcohol, attendance, culture, things of that nature, that we can literally provide fillable PDFs to those employers that they put their company name and their logo on, and it is already passed through our legal department, and they already fall within the guidelines of KTEP. So it's fantastic for anyone that wants to sign up, whether they're a new startup, a small, we even have people with 3 employees on their small boutiques, up to, thousands of employees. And they have all talked about how easy it is to implement those changes. So right now we're seeing about 38% in manufacturing. Healthcare, which is surprising, represents about 14%, and business services are about 12%. We want to move more into some of the fields that substance use disorder are a little bit more prevalent. So the Office for Drug Control Policy released last year, and I'll get into more of it later, that we're still on an increase of overdose deaths in Kentucky. And we know that the construction industry has a high percentage of those individuals that are suffering from substance use disorder and may have overdosed while on a job site, has been in construction. So we definitely want to work to get KTEP and more organizations involved in the construction sector. That way we can help more Kentuckians. Other things that we do at the Workforce Recovery Program, we have employer resource guides for employers that may have a few questions, maybe that are not historically a fair chance employer and want to learn more information about how to be a fair chance employer. We have that there. It used to be marketed as kind of a contacting tool for us at the chamber, but the way that I market that employer resource guide is that there's an employee inventory in there, and that employers can literally use it as a metaphorical gut check for them, that they are able to look at those questions, give open and honest answers to that, and then approach me to see which direction that we can go. It's an old motivational interviewing tactic. Well, if you're here at this point, what's keeping you from maybe recruiting directly from a recovery facility? If you already have people working here and they're working out great, why aren't you building relationships with recovery facilities in order to find your potential talents? So we use that to help employers move forward. And we talk about how if there's a line in the sand that must be drawn, let's draw that line in the sand, but let's begin that conversation. And so the employer resource guide really helps with that. Part of the education that we do. So if a company hasn't been historically a fair chance employer, or they have, hired a few fair chance individuals and it hasn't worked out for whatever reason, then we work with, those frontline supervisors and figure out what's the culture within the organization. And part of that is, working with their frontline supervisors, their higher level management, in order to make sure that their culture is a supportive one, to help support individuals throughout their recovery journey. Or getting resources within the organization that what we call non-HR related issues. I know our EKSEP folks that are part of the audience today will appreciate, the success coach's role in helping with those non-HR related issues. So, we have to think about work and life happening outside of work, and those kind of feed off each other. If you're stressed about your transportation at work, that's going to affect your ability to do your job effectively. And part of the training and education that we have is how to bring those resources within your organization without sacrificing your organization's resources, if that makes sense. So there are partners that we have that have knowledge and those resources readily available, and most of the time they're free, that organizations don't know about, and we want to provide those resources and let them be available for individuals that do come forward. One of the things that we tell frontline supervisors is that it's okay not to know what to say when an individual comes to you, but it's not okay not to know what to do. And so with that training and education and connecting to those resources that we do, we want to establish someone within that organization that does have knowledge of those resources and have those readily available. So instead of a frontline supervisor saying, well, you go on back to work and we'll try to get you some resources by the end of the day, it's the ability to say, well, I'm overwhelmed that you've come to me with this issue, but let's find you some help right now, and take them directly to that person so they can solve that issue. Because I know human nature, and I'm sure you guys do too, that I'm not going to go to my boss or my frontline supervisor if, I'm embarrassed about me needing to air up my tires before I go to work, or that my battery's dead. Yesterday, I hated making the phone call, but I had a speaking engagement yesterday and my car broke down in Lexington. And, because of what we do at the Kentucky Chamber, that's the first phone call I made. Is I tried to solve it myself by going to Enterprise Rent a Car. They didn't have a car. I wasn't going to be able to make my speaking engagement. So I call my boss and say, I'm broke down in Lexington. I need someone to cover for me. But a lot of the times, especially with entry level and people that are suffering from substance use disorder, or, may have justice involvement, they don't have that level of trust within that, historically troubled organization, to approach their frontline supervisor and say, hey, I'm having problems finding food for my family. And another thing we talk about is you would be amazed at how some people's attitudes would change with a full belly. And, sometimes it's hard for upper level management to see the bottom when they're at the top, and that, they have a support structure in place that maybe their entry level personnel, or even, your management, need to be aware of to help them move forward. And last but certainly not least is the Fair Chance Academy. And we're actually getting ready to start our next cohort. This will be cohort 2. The first day is February 1st, 2023. And we're super excited to start the Fair Chance Academy. So this is our first cohort in 2022. It was 21 individuals from 20 different companies that came together to learn how to be a better fair chance employer, but also how to take that next step. Part of being a fair chance employer is not just agreeing to hire individuals from substance use disorder backgrounds or fair chance. Let me look at the Q&A we have. Are there no employers in Christian County? Not right now. There are fair chance employers, but none that have signed up for the Kentucky Chamber's KTEP specifically. Sorry, I had to jump on that real quick. So part of KTAP is that opt-in program, and so that is what you saw mapped out. The Kentucky Chamber of Commerce has recruited somewhere around 37,000, a little bit more than 37,000 fair chance roles. But those are for employers that have signed up for KTAP. Now, if they are hiring individuals from the fair chance backgrounds, whether it be justice involvement, mental health issues, substance use disorder, we would love for them to sign up for KTAP. That way they could receive that little bit of guidance and that protection from those civil issues. So our first cohort of the Fair Chance Academy graduated in 2022, and it's the first time that the state has ever certified employers as being fair chance. And so what it was and what the Fair Chance Academy is 3 full days there at the chamber where they learn about addiction and justice involvement. They get to go through a pretty extensive reentry simulation to get a little bit more insight to, the issues that people face, reentering society and reentering the workforce. It has opened a whole lot of eyes and inspired a whole lot of change across Kentucky. And we couldn't be more proud of our first cohort and, some of the things that they were doing and are doing are awesome. And we'll talk a little bit more about that moving forward. So part of my role at the Kentucky Chamber is really building relationships with recovery facilities and detention facilities as a way to market skills and education learned while incarcerated, but also allow employers to lead those educational opportunities within those organizations. That way, upon release, an employer in that area could have, a highly skilled, highly motivated individual to move into a role that they have open. So, really quick, some really great partnerships with KCTCS have come out of this, where employers are directly responsible for the curriculum that is being presented and learned inside these facilities. So we have an employer that comes forward and says, I'm having an issue finding individuals with advanced manufacturing experience. And specifically out of Elizabethtown and Melody Ogden, they have created a curriculum that is directly supported by that employer. And they are actively recruiting and enrolling individuals from addiction recovery care facilities into those classes to feed that pipeline to those advanced manufacturers and give them positions. And the beautiful part about it is as they enroll, they get the full experience of being a student of KCTCS. So they have access to the facilities, to the libraries, to the restaurants on campus. Even though that is a short-term training and a short-term certification and licensure, they do get the experience of being a student there. Moving forward, we hope to get more of our vocational rehabilitation employer or partners involved, so we can do an interest inventory as part of their intake. If we're able to do that interest inventory and get multiple sectors involved, then we can feed that machine in any way that we can, so we can feed those pipelines with the talent of a fulfilling career. And a lot of the times we work with individuals that say, I just need a job. I have bills that I have to pay. I just need a job. Well, the reentry and workforce side of things sees it a little differently. We want meaningful, gainful employment for individuals that are going through. We want them trained in something that they have an interest in, and we want them to feel fulfilled when they achieve or secure a position in that field that they were interested in. So I think getting that that interest inventory really early on, getting all those sectors involved and getting a multitude of different training opportunities out there and available to them will make a whole lot of change moving forward. So we're talking about the industry alignment and the successful outcomes of partnership. So Toyotomi has had a successful partnership with ARC and are moving into Isaiah House, where people that are still in an inpatient treatment program, once they are able to secure employment, then they're working with Toyotomi to be loaded up on 15 passenger vans and bust straight to work. And it has been, overwhelmingly successful. They have been able to fill, I'm not sure how many, the last count I had was somewhere around 16 or 18 positions with the programs that they've had of just bringing people on site, bringing them to work, and then taking them home. So part of this is giving financial literacy skills and education to individuals that are going there so they can set up a savings account. So once they complete their program, then they can move into their own housing and be able to have that money saved for like first and last month's rent, things like that. So we can move into those other, 3 pillars that we have for success, which is housing, transportation, and employment. And these success stories that we have really take care of 1 or 2 whenever ultimately we want them to have 3. And if you guys want to learn more about the Kentucky Transformational Employment Program, the Kentucky Chamber in general, or the Workforce Recovery Program, scan that now, sign up, contact me for more information, and I'd be happy to help. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now. We can do it live here, and I will just go from here. What about the individuals within an inpatient program have a criminal background? That's an interesting question. We have a lot of individuals of that comorbidity, whether it's mental health issues with substance use disorder, and also moving more into helping individuals with justice involvement and substance use disorder. So those we have partners that are available, and alternative sentencing counselors that are working directly with us and with treatment providers. If they are on court-ordered treatment, then they're able to help them navigate that, maybe it's restitution or, that criminal background screening and keeping them from maybe going to jail. It really helps in getting those people involved and helping them navigate that space. I don't do it particularly, but we do have partners that are helping people that are in recovery facilities have navigate that space as they get out. Now, if it's something that's prior to, so they have a criminal background and then they get enrolled in a treatment facility, we really look at that as, is your criminal background stemming from your substance use disorder, or is it an older charge that we're looking to maybe get expunged or something like that? So we have employers that are ready to help in a multitude of those different circumstances. Some employers say that they'll take individuals with substance use disorder, but non-violent crimes, if they have violent crimes on their history, they won't consider them for employment. But that's okay. We want to show those successes for individuals that approach that line that they've drawn in the sand, show the success, and maybe get them to move beyond it in the future. But we do work with Goodwill and with the, I know that in the Tenco area, we're currently working on an expungement clinic to get those charges expunged for people that have, had more than 5 years on those Class D felonies to get those expunged for the record. Megan asked, I was wondering about the data being collected. I was just thinking about the impact on recidivism rates. So, so we know that for our justice involved folks, that the number one predictor of recidivism is if the individual had a full-time job or not. And some really great programs that we've had and data that we've gotten, and it's really early to tell, but don't tell anyone that I told you, we've seen as much as a 75% decrease in recidivism for people that are involved in our programs. One really great program that I'll highlight is the horsemanship program, and I can't take really any credit for it. I've been there to support, but Lori Mays, she is the equine and agriculture talent pipeline management project manager, and she established a program within Blackburn Correctional Complex there in Lexington with the horsemanship program, and it is amazing the training and education skills and certifications that those individuals at Blackburn go through for the horsemanship program. And Lori was amazed, and she has been in the ag equine kind of business for most of her career, and she was blown away at the training that those individuals received. And she knows as part of her job that there in Lexington, the horse capital of the world, that there are a lot of open positions on these multi-million-dollar farms, whether it be thoroughbred farms, racehorse farms, show horse farms, that there are a lot of positions open, and that the skills that people in the Blackburn were learning were desirable skills for those farms. And so they brought them on site and toured the facilities, showed them curriculum that they're going through, and literally were wanting to interview and hire these guys that were going through the program before they were released. There have been occurrences where employers are mailing people that are incarcerated their uniforms before they're released so they can pick them up the day that they're released and take them to work. So it's been such a great program, and that's just going to carry on and hopefully grow throughout the state as we move those programs and get those camps ready to accept employers and have them tour and see what marketable skills that they have and can leave with. Does the chamber work with the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation for this program? Yes, that is, I'm working with Brent Sturgill currently, and we are getting a pilot together in Round County to work specifically with Edgewater and Round County Jail there to get people those interest inventories and get employers on board. Is there any instruction for supervisors in coaching, mentoring current staff with justice involvement staff coming in? Absolutely. That's part of our 3-part training series that we have at the Workforce Recovery Program. So we have, it used to be a 3-part training series. It's really boiled down into one that has 3 different sections. So there's Addiction 101, Are You Okay? And when to disclose and when not to disclose. And it really gives those frontline supervisors training and education on subtle issues within someone to ask that simple legal question of are you okay, and be prepared for a response other than I'm fine. And that is a huge whenever it comes to someone that, may be exhibiting those behavior, and they're able to notice those subtle differences with an individual and approach them and really talk and be supportive of them. We want to change the way that workforce is viewed in Kentucky. We want to show employers that for some people out there, they don't have a support system. I used to call it the Janie Bowman complex, because I wouldn't be where I am right now without my family and my support system. I'm prior service military, been diagnosed PTSD, anxiety, depression, the whole gambit. And I had a support system in place. And for some of the individuals out there that, organizations are hiring or our state partners are working with, they have no support system in place. So how life-changing would it be if we are able to provide resources and education and training to employers to become a little bit of that resource and a little bit of that support? It can change people's lives. So that's really what we're out there trying to do. Is there an age requirement for the Fair Chance Academy? No, there is not. We just hope you bring an open mind and are able to learn and maybe change some things within your region or your organization to help us move forward with what we're trying to do and changing the way that we view workforce in Kentucky. And how can the chamber recruit employers for this program? Is there an elevator speech, things to avoid saying to them? We do have, and I wouldn't mind sharing at all, the elevator speech. Really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to get across is that we want more employers to be successful in being able to recruit, hire, and retain individuals from fair chance populations. And we'll do anything that we can to help that occur. We don't want employers to lower their standard of employee because they think they're hiring from fair chance. We want them to have higher expectations of employees that are being hired from fair chance. So for them to think that they have to make an impact to their bottom line, their resources, or their level of competency in an employee, we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So we want them to, again, be able to successfully hire, recruit, hire, train, and retain individuals from fair chance population. I think that's all that the question that I have, or questions that I have. Fletcher, I will definitely take a little snapshot of your phone number, and then I'll give you a call after this today. I think that is all that I have. If you need any other resources or information, there's all of my information on the screen right now. And I appreciate you guys so much. Let me open this next part. Sara, do you want me to, do you want to go through your slides, or do you want me to go through for you?
I can do it.
Okay, so I'd like to introduce you guys. Sorry, we're like I said, we're still trying to play catch up here. I'd like to introduce you guys to Sara Tracy. She is the senior project manager for TPM at the Kentucky Chamber Foundation, and she is an outstanding resource whenever it comes to all things TPM. And I appreciate all your all's time today. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much.
Right. Thanks, Ryan. If you guys will give me just a second, the minute I shared my screen, all of you disappeared. So I'm not sure what happened with that, but we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for having me today. Really excited to meet you all via webinar, and excited to tell you about a couple other programs that we have at the Kentucky Chamber Foundation. Like Ryan said, I'm the senior project manager for talent pipeline management, and that's the first program that I will kind of share with you, but I also oversee and lead our bus to business efforts. So a couple different opportunities for employers. I want to start with this video, so hopefully this will work. I can't see any of you right now, so Leah or Ryan, if someone will let me know if you can't hear or see or anything like that.
Today, businesses are seeking to build an increasingly skilled and diverse workforce. Meanwhile, more and more learners and workers are seeking employment and career advancement. While this may seem like a simple pairing, there is a problem. Many employers are still searching for a strategic and sustainable talent pipeline. Without it, their employment outcomes so often fall short of expectations. Talent Pipeline Management, or TPM, is a tool that can help. The TPM framework is a collection of 6 strategies that are based on industry best practices and provide employers with a data and performance-driven approach to identifying, developing, and sourcing talent. Utilizing supply chain management principles, these 6 strategies are ROI-driven, allowing employers to take the lead, building meaningful partnerships with educators and training providers, measuring their success, and creating employment and career advancement pathways for a skilled workforce. Learn how you can become part of this growing movement.
All right. So TPM, as the video shared, it is a program that was created by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. It was brought to Kentucky in partnership between the Chamber and our Education and Labor Cabinet in 2018, and has been going strong for a little over 4 years now. We're headed into our 5th. But as the video mentioned, overview, if you think quite literally down to supply chain principles, you're going from that raw material, that student, that worker who may not have the training, education, or experience, to that employer once they've received all of that. But the neat thing about TPM is it is completely employer driven to kind of go in the background, do the homework with the employers, and make sure that we are skilling up our workforce the way that they need to be to succeed in our businesses. I'm going to stop sharing for 1 minute and pull it back up. I apologize. It's throwing me off a little bit not to be able to see anything. Okay, there we go. Can you guys see the PowerPoint still?
That's actually better for us.
Oh, okay, nice. All right. So, mentioned we have 6 strategies, and I apologize if you guys see me kind of looking to the right. It's on a different screen for me. But the first 4 strategies are really that homework that I mentioned. So you'll kind of go through those, and the employers will get the facts right and be able to share those. And then strategy 5 and 6 is where we move into building those solutions with you. So I'm going to walk you through each of these, and then I'll give some kind of real examples of what's happened here in Kentucky with our work over the last few years. And I'll start with an overview. So in the 4 years, we have built over 30 different industry collaboratives. We have over 300 employers that are engaged in this work actively. We've evaluated over 200 critical jobs, and I'll touch on that a little bit more. And then we've gotten over 4,000, I actually think this is over 5,000 now, Kentuckians connected to jobs, training, or work-based learning opportunities. So strategy 1 is an interesting one, and I think sometimes almost one of the most fun. It's organizing the employers into a collaborative. So what we mean by that is we need groups of employers that are willing to come together with a common pain point. For example, healthcare providers are, in a critical need for nurses right now, and have been since before COVID, which only made it worse. But what we need is a group of employers that are willing to come together and partner to work on that problem. So with that example in particular, we have healthcare collaboratives in just about every region of the state that have come forward. And what's interesting about our collaboratives is you think, it's essentially competitors at the table, and it's how's that going to work? You kind of have that question, but really employers are so kind of challenged in this area that they're starting to recognize, I'm not figuring this out on my own. How can we work together to rectify the bigger issues? So strategy 2 is, really the beginning of that homework phase. How do we best communicate our needs with our education and training partners? So this will give you kind of a perspective on that. We asked them to share with us those critical positions, those just critical pain points, and what do they want to focus their efforts on. This is an example of what that data can look like. So we ask our employers, what are the critical positions? You can see those kind of listed to the left. And this is real data that we've collected for our EK-STEP Healthcare Collaborative that's been going strong for about 4 years now. But this is just kind of what it can look like. Our state has a fantastic data system in KY Stats, if you're familiar with them. But that's, labor market information, as opposed to this is real time. These employers are telling us right now what they need. And this is a projection for 7 different healthcare institutions in that region. Excuse me. Their main focus with this collaborative is on registered nurses, but this really helps them understand the big picture of their need, as well as communicate that with their education and training partners. I've got a couple different views of what this looks like and how we share it with our employers. So as the employers come together and we are working with them, we create the surveys at the chamber. We are facilitators of this work, but the employers make all of the decisions on what they're going to do moving forward. And I'll give an example of that in just a second. So one of the next strategy is aligning and communicating job requirements. So if you think about all the different job descriptions that might be online for one position, right? How do we best communicate as an employer collaborative? So we will work with all those job descriptions within our collaborative. They've said registered nurses are the top, that's the most important to us. But how do we best communicate with our education and training partners what the most important skill set is? And this is focusing on both technical skills as well as soft skills. So what we do is on our team, we take those job descriptions, we kind of compare and contrast, piece them apart. We build one survey, and then the employers will actually rank that skill set so that we can then go back as a collaborative group of employers and say, hey, educators, this is what's most important to come into this role for all of us. This is a group of employers telling you. And that way, if there is something that can be tweaked in education and training, maybe something needs more attention than something else, they can adjust that and make those adjustments and turn out a better educated or better trained worker in the future. Now, strategy 4 is probably the most cumbersome for the employer side when they're doing this work with us, but it also gives us some really good information. So we're analyzing the talent supply. We're wanting to look back at where your best talent has come from. So who is that really great worker that you recognize that's been with you for a year now? That's the type of worker that you want to find in the future. Where did they come from? Where were they educated? Where did they work before? And it looks back into, well, how do we better partner? It helps illustrate if you think you're mainly sourcing from one talent pool, so one training program or one education source, analyzing the talent supply will look back at those for a group of employees and then say, hey, I know we get a lot of talent from University of Louisville, for example, but look at this other school that showed up on our talent flow, and maybe we need to develop a better relationship with them. Maybe we don't work with them that often, or maybe we didn't even know necessarily that they had this program. So it helps kind of illustrate where you are partnering well, but also where there might be potential for other pipelines of talent. So we worked with a group of construction, specifically electrical, in the Bluegrass region. And what they found more often than not, because most of them have their own apprenticeship programs in-house, is that they could hire and were hiring mostly straight out of high school, right? 48%. So then the question became, okay, well, where are those programs in Kentucky? Where are the programs that are leading someone into an electrical apprenticeship? And where are most of our candidates coming from? So they were actually coming from 5 particular programs, some not even in the Bluegrass area, as you can see here. So then the question became, okay, well, we might have known that we work with them or we hire from them, but if we can get that many candidates and we know that they're really good candidates, how do we better partner with those educational institutions? And so they actually started with just one program because they said, okay, well, how do we get in front of these students more often? How do we build a relationship so that they want to come and work for us when they graduate? How do we do that? And how do we do it well? So they actually started with one of the educational programs and put some really kind of strategic steps in place to get in front of and work with those students on a more regular basis, and then are replicating those efforts at the other programs. So strategy 5, as I mentioned, this is where we really start to build solutions for whatever it may be. For example, with the manufacturing, the biotech industry here in the Bluegrass region, what we found is that you have to be 18 to work in their industry, but you don't necessarily need to have a lot of experience in manufacturing. You don't have to have been in a high school program, but you also don't necessarily need a 2-year degree to step into the role that was most critical for them. So what we found is that BCTC here in the Bluegrass region actually has a biotech academic program. And for those who don't know, some may not, our community college system has both an academic side and a side called Workforce Solutions that can develop customized training for employers in the state. So that's exactly what we did. They said, you know, we don't necessarily want someone right out of high school. We want them to have some experience in training, but they don't need a 2-year degree. So we worked with BCTC and the companies themselves and developed a customized training program for new or incoming biotech employees. So that's just one example of what we've been able to build. We do love to use this graphic. And what I think is important that it shows is, you know, the employer and the education and training programs, they're all involved. They might be more involved at one part of the process to the end, but everybody's involved from minute 1, and we have to work together. We have to collaborate to build these talent pipelines to be successful. So this is an example out of Louisville. This is the Health Careers Collaborative of Greater Louisville that is focused on, as you can see, RNs, a lot of different types of RNs. What they actually found as they looked at the demand for their nurses in comparison to the nursing school capacity in their area is that they were actually able, they were pretty close to meeting the need for nurses. So they're graduating just about enough nurses that those employers need in that region. So why do the employers still feel like they just can't find enough nurses? They're not ready for them. Well, what we found is in Louisville, they were not scheduling their required clinical rotations in the same way. So the students, the employers, and the schools were all scheduling clinical rotations in a lot of different ways. Quite literally, some on pen and paper, some using a certain computer program, just communicating well. And it was making it more and more challenging for those students to get through those required clinical rotations before they could really go to work for the employers. So in partnership with this collaborative, we brought a new software to that area called Castle Branch that allows everyone to sign up on the same platform and make that communication better. Now they're still implementing this kind of as we speak. So they are, I think it's about 2,000 out of a projected 4,000 students are signed up at this point in using the software. So it's been fun to kind of hear that anecdotally just through people that we know. And strategy 6 is engaging in continuous improvement and resiliency planning. So Like the video said, this is ROI driven. So once we build something like the biotech training program, we don't just say goodbye, see you later. We come back and we measure that to see, is this, improving retention within your employment system? Are your folks staying with you longer because they feel valued, that you're putting some training into them? What does that look like? And it looks different for each collaborative and what they're focused on and what they're working on. But it's definitely not a one and done. These are the industry focuses and contacts for TPM. So you can do the QR code if you'd like to have those contacts, or if you work for an employer or know an employer that might be interested in this. I'm our senior project manager as well. So if you just have further questions, you can reach out to me. I'm going to transition a little bit here and talk about Bus to Business. I do apologize. I have to hop off at 3. So if you guys have questions, please add them to the chat, and either Ryan will be able to field those, or if he can't, I will make sure to get answers back to Leah on those. Bus to Business has been dubbed our cutest program at the Chamber. It started in 2019 with kind of a one-day blitz of one of our board members who worked for a manufacturer said, why aren't these students that are, 5 minutes from our facility coming and touring? Why aren't they interacting with us? We'd love to recruit them to work here. We'd love for them to know about our opportunities. And when he went to the school and asked that question, what he found was the school said, we can't get there. We don't have the funding for a bus. And he said, well, how much is a bus? And they said it was $250 or $300, something like that. And he said, well, I'll pay for that. So out of that conversation, how simple is that to get a group of potential students, future employees, to come and get an interest in your company? So in 2019, we did kind of a one-day blitz, and we did it all across the state. And we invited any company who was interested to attend and participate, and the schools signed up, and it was fantastic. We had, I forget how many, but it spanned the entire state that year. Now, unfortunately, as I talk about 2019, you can imagine what happened the next year, because that's when COVID came. So taking students to employers going into schools, it was not going to happen. So we pivoted for the last 2 years, actually, and went to virtual sessions. And we had a session every Wednesday, Workforce Wednesdays, that were live, featured different employers across the state. Students were able, and teachers, they could actually sign on if they were in school, and do these virtual sessions and ask live Q&A questions of employers. So this year, and this map is probably a little bit outdated, but this is kind of the signups of businesses and schools participating. We've had a few more recently, but this year we have pivoted back to in person. I think everyone was hungry for that. And our TPM project managers are merely the facilitators. When schools and businesses sign up, we're kind of the organizer in between that makes it happen. Actually, today, this afternoon, in Georgetown, Kentucky, we had Signature Healthcare go into a school and speak to a class of students about opportunities with their system and in healthcare. So they can happen at any time. We just ask employers and schools to sign up, and we get the ball moving. So I know we talked about workforce recovery first, Bus to Business, and talent pipeline management, but those are QR codes for all three. I don't know if there are any questions immediately. If not, I will turn it back over to Ryan. And I do apologize for having to run.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it very much. And thank you so much for jumping on and helping me today. I don't think I could have done this alone. So thank you so much for being here. Right now, I just want to talk about a little bit more about the program that we have here, and let you know that, as I said before, that the Office for Drug Control Policy released last year that we did increase in the number of overdose deaths in Kentucky, and programs that we have within our organization really want to help facilitate that change. And I know sometimes that the data can reinforce what we're feeling with losing the people that we're losing in Kentucky, but also how employment and employers and private public sponsorships and partnerships can play a role in helping reduce that number. And I always want to add just a little bit about how if you have friends or family right now, please tell them that this is the most dangerous time in Kentucky or even the US to use any illicit drug. Part of the overdose deaths stem from fentanyl, and the reason why some of these deaths are occurring is because people are forming those pills in what would look like a prescription Xanax or even a opioid of some sort, and the active ingredient be fentanyl in there. So please tell your friends and family that we have data that shows people that aren't diagnosed with substance use disorder, that have not used drugs recreationally ever before, that have been offered what looked like a Xanax, and a first-time drug user has overdosed and died because the active ingredient was fentanyl. So we always want to add that in there, and that our strategic partnership with CORE, or the Kentucky Opioid Response Effort, has enabled us to do naloxone training and education for anyone that's involved in our programs. And that if you do have a facility that would like to participate, we have trainers that are able to go into those organizations and train people and frontline supervisors on the use and receive 2 doses of naloxone. Another thing that we're trying to do is institute what we call nalox boxes. So one thing that you would learn going through the training is that they are zero side effects of administering naloxone to someone that isn't overdosing on an opioid. So what that means is that if you find an unresponsive person and there is a slightest suspicion or suspected use of opioids, that you administer naloxone. And part of that strategic partnership with CORE is that we place those nalox boxes next to the AEDs, and in public places people see the glass cases with an AED inside, that we have naloxone in there as well. And it's just in an effort to save more Kentuckians. I know that I would be remiss if I didn't say that it would help the workforce to save more Kentuckians, but that's really not what it's about. Is that we want to save our brothers and sisters here if they are struggling with an issue of addiction. Right now, I'll open it up once again for any questions for the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, the Workforce Center specifically, or my program. If you have any questions about the Fair Chance Academy, I'd be happy to answer those. Applications are live. We've extended the deadline until close of business today. So if you or any organization that you know of, get them to fill out an application. We are at our capacity, but for employers that we really want to have a part of, we would definitely make an exception to get them in there. So if there's any questions at all, I'd be happy to answer them, or any comments. No, there's not a fee for Fair Chance Academy. Everything is free. We feed you every day delicious food, and we have a party, and you get to hang out with me and my coworkers at the chamber for 3 separate Fridays. It'll be the 1st, 8th, and 15th of February. Today is the deadline. Yes, Phyllis.
We also have a comment in the chat. If you have any requests for information or harm reduction training, you can send those to Lisa Vanderpool within the Department for Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities. And her email address is in the chat box.
Did we have another question? How often are we offering the academy? The academy, we're hoping to do 3 this year with 25 businesses per. But right now we're looking, because we had to delay over the director of the program leaving for another opportunity. We had to delay this one. So we're hoping to do 2 of 35 today, this year. What do the attendees of the academy find most useful in changing their opinions and opening their minds? I think all of it rolled into one. It is a life-changing experience. It really is. It is a view-changing experience. But the most fun and the most in-depth that we get is probably the reentry simulation. They have fun, but they go to, when they go to jail. And, one of the greatest memories that I have from the previous one is that when a person attending finally got that negative screen on a urinalysis so they could get a job. They literally jumped up and down to whenever they got that negative screen on a urinalysis so they could go work. So how long is the academy, days and weeks? So it's 3 full days. That will be every Friday in February. So February 1st, 8th, and 15th, with the graduation being on the 15th. You'll hear from some of the leaders in the state in Frankfurt, but also educators from CORE, state partners, and resources there will be able to help out there as well. Are you aware of any employers who have experienced any liability as a result of a fair chance employment incident? I have. I am not sure. I can talk about this. They did not have KTEP. They were not signed up for KTEP as a result. But there has not been an issue. So the person that was hired, I'm trying to leave identifiers out of this so we can make sure that happens. So a person was hired and he was known in the community through his addiction. So people knew him in the community as through his addiction. And he was hired for a company where they had work trucks. And he happened to be driving a work truck when he got into an incident. So his reputation preceded him whenever, that incident occurred. And so the immediate response for, the person that was injured was to approach that company and say that they were liable because they knew that they had an addiction. But the awesome thing about it is that they, followed all protocols, sent for after incident drug screen. He was completely negative on on his drug screen. And he's still employed with that company. And the company reached out to one of our state partners and said, well, I wish we would have known about KTEP so we could have negated those issues, even if it had come up, as if he would have tested positive in that incident, then they couldn't be pursued. But, for someone to be found negligible, no, we've never had that experience.
We have a question in the chat, and I believe it was about the Fair Chance Academy. Someone asked if the Kentucky Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission had been invited.
I am actually on that commission. So yes, a person on that committee is actually hosting. So yes, we are there. I have it's all been approved through Van Ingram. Van Ingram sits on the board as well. And we like to say that he approves is kind of downplaying it. He loves the Fair Chance Academy and wants to see more of it. Van is the executive director of the Office for Drug Control Policy, those that don't know. Kathy, so she asked, is the academy open to youth as young as 17 or 18 if they graduated high school or have a GED? Kathy, we would like for you to be representing a company as an HR manager or CEO. I would be happy to have you there on a day or a couple of days as a guest. To be able to experience the Fair Chance Academy and let you know of some of the things that we are doing at the Kentucky Chamber to lessen the stigma surrounded by justice involvement and substance use disorder. But also, you know, you can use that as information if you do experience someone that could benefit from it, or maybe you in the future, if and when you're representing a company or organization. Lisa said, employer participation in Western Kentucky is minimal. Are there efforts in place to increase awareness and participation? I'm so happy that you asked that question, because I'll be the first to say, I live in Eastern Kentucky. I live in Morgan County. And Western Kentucky is so far away. But lucky for us at the Chamber, we have, I say recently, in the past 6 months, have hired Jacob that lives in Western Kentucky, and he and I are going to tag team getting employers on board and hopefully meeting with them virtually in order to get that, to kind of move the needle in that region. Because I'll be the first to say I've neglected that region just because I have to line up 2 to 3 days worth of work and just go there and stay overnight to do that. And I've done that maybe twice or 3 times as my role as program manager here at the Chamber.
Someone said, please ask Jacob to call me.
Yes, I sure will. I have, Phyllis. I've talked to Phyllis about it in the past about how I've done it. So yeah, I'll have Jacob call you.
I guess that spurns a question for those in the audience today. If they live in the western part of the state, what can they do to help?
Yeah, we've had employers come forward. It's just the point of specificness of employers that come forward, because they're the way that I explain it is that they want a short-term solution, and this is employers want a short-term solution for a long-term problem. And for those that have seen our workforce report that we published a couple of years ago, this workforce crisis is 20 years in the making. And for us to come up with those short-term solutions for that 20-year issue that's been building up is it's next to impossible. And part of that is there's a talent supply available in justice involved and people with substance use disorder, and we can help, but they have to have their culture within that organization able to receive that talent and retain that talent. But on the other side of the coin, we want to prepare them for training and education long-term so that they're doing outreach into recovery facilities, local jails. Even one of the really cool things that we've done is worked with family resource centers so they can do some outreach with, people that they know are struggling and help them to get, a good wages and, maybe help their family in the process. Yeah, I'll definitely call you, Fletcher, whenever we get off here today. I know that during the last plan event that we were introduced, but we haven't really been able to get together. So thank you guys so much. I don't know if there's any other questions, but if they do come in, I would be happy to answer them. If there's nothing else, I'll turn it back over to Lee.
Someone said one of the problems I have run into is with background checks and employers saying they are transformational employers, but don't really know what is on the background check they utilize.
So for that issue, I would work with the REPAs that are in the area and train that employer on how to read that background check. Because if they're saying that they're fair chance employers, but are still either refusing or firing them because of what's coming back on their background check, we need to properly educate them on how to read one first. And then if there's any issues that stem from there, I know one of the big issues that we've run into is federal regulation supersedes all of our state policy that we can put forward. So I know that there's a few employers that we work with that do have federal contracts to do certain things, and they can't hire people with, any kind of record to work on those programs. But for UPS, we're working on a thing with UPS out of CVG, where CVG actually employs them and they work for UPS, and we can work it out that way. I know that doesn't help a lot in Louisville, Millie, but in Northern Kentucky, we can work on something there.
And tell us what a REPA is.
Oh, a REPA is a Reentry Employment Program Administrator. They work for the Department of Corrections. And the really cool thing about what the REPAs do and how it's worked this year as opposed to all the other years, they have operated somewhere around 3 to 4 years, but they were not allotted a budget. Now their funds are actually built into the state budget, and REPAs are tied to the probation and parole offices and work on the reentry side. So our two main state partners that we really work with to secure talent are the JERS, Job Entry and Retention Support Specialists. They are somebody in the chat that's a JERS, refresh me. How many are there throughout the state? There used to be 13, but I think there's somewhere around 16 or 17 now throughout the state. They're tied to each of the workforce development regions, and they work throughout that region to educate people in recovery facilities. The REPAs do the same thing with people that are justice involved. Now, they do have some overlap sometimes where they work together on particular individuals, and they do that warm handoff, but they would have more knowledge about those local resources than I could.
And if anybody has been watching the chat box, I dropped the website for the Kentucky Chamber in the chat box. There is so much information on the website about every program that they've referenced. You can find information there. You can find the application for the Fair Chance Academy on the website. And I put that link in earlier, so just scroll up to receive that. And I wanted to remind everybody that during the first full week of February is when you'll receive the link for the session evaluation. You will not receive it today or tomorrow. It's going to come the first full week of February. Also, I apologize that I did not hit record at the appropriate time in the beginning of the session. So the recording is going to be probably about 5 minutes short. We are making those available online, and I'm going to put that in the chat box right this minute. And I just want to again thank Ryan and Tracy, Sara, Tracy for being here today. I'm going to stop recording for a second, and then I'm going to tell you a quick story.